All right, perfect. So this is day three of the Lunch and Learn series. Today we're talking all about stress and cortisol and how that impacts fat loss. And I think this is like the missing link. When I talk to people, typically all the people I talk to are moms. They are trying to balance all the things. Maybe they're working during the day or practices at night, like all the things, right? More than just having a full-time job of eating right and working out. If it were that easy, right, we could all see success, but the people I talk to have a lot going on, and stress plays a really big role. So I want to talk to you about that. I have the tendency to go sciencey and to talk where people's eyes glaze over. We're not going there today, so I've censored myself, but at the same time, I want you to understand this. So trying to balance it all without my goal is definitely not to overwhelm you. So with that, let me remind you, today is Wednesday. It's the third day of the series. We will continue tomorrow as well, and then through next week. Next week, and it's in teal. That's the longer session. So it's an hour-long session where these are all short, meant to give you a couple tidbits that you can use right away, like you can use today, you can use tomorrow. But the masterclass is where I put it all together. And it's a bigger topic altogether. So if you can only make one thing, that would be the one to make. And watching these as replays, I think will really help your understanding and building it out. So when we talk about stress, so moving into today's topic, this picture is from this morning, because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, people are going to think I'm going to say, oh, stop drinking coffee, stop doing this, stop doing all these things. And instead of feeling so restrictive, because I drink coffee, and I don't want you to feel like I'm taking all of the joy out of life. I don't think that's very sustainable. It doesn't work in the long term. You need to have something that feels good in your routine, but also if you have, say, coffee, yeah, it's a diuretic, probably not the most healthy thing we could have. And at the same time, if we're going to have it, how do we balance it in our life so that it works, so that you can actually see fat loss, right? So I'm not taking your coffee away, but I took this picture this morning. I was like, let me just remember to say that disclaimer. I'm not trying to take the joy out of life, but I do want to explain how it is all connected. So stress and fat loss, very much hand in hand. And then there's a couple other things I want to mention. I won't go super in depth with hormones or thyroid health and all that today, but I just wanted to mention that it is all connected. So a little bit of science today, yay, because that's my background. But we're not doing overwhelm, so we'll keep it fairly straightforward. And another, just a reminder, you've heard me say this throughout days one and two already. I know that you are probably trying really hard. Most people I have talked to, they're like, I have been dieting for years. My kids are in middle school and I've been trying to be healthy since they were born, since I was like newly postpartum. Or maybe you've been dieting since high school. Um, we've had this idea that we want to be better, be healthier, lose weight, whatever it is. And it could have been going on for years and years, but our body, when we're talking about the chemistry and we're putting it all together, your body doesn't necessarily align with those goals because it is simply trying to help you survive. Your body is trying to keep you alive. And so those kind of are in conflict with each other, which is giving us that frustration, that stuck feeling. Um, a takeaway from this is that if you are doing more, working out more, I used to do like 2 a day workouts, working out more. Like, have you ever heard of 75 hard, right? 2 a day workouts. So you're supposed to do 45 minutes of workouts twice a day. That could actually be making things worse, especially if you are already stressed out. And that's just going to put your body more into that survival pattern. So, going in the right direction today. This is the part I'm like, I want to make sure you don't feel overwhelmed by this particular diagram. I love pathways. And sometimes when I explain the science and I'll break this down for you, people are like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. But I know when I first see these, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of arrows. That feels really complicated. And so, what your takeaway is from this is that it is all connected. So, when we have stress in the morning, that can lead to those symptoms of feeling really high anxiety. Maybe if you don't have enough cortisol in the morning, you actually might feel like a zombie. You're like barely making it like out of your room till you get your 4 cups of coffee. Maybe you feel like a zombie because your cortisol is actually bottomed out. Okay. And that's where we're starting in this pathway, but I'll point it out and make it easy for you. Stress is related to energy. So if your energy is crashing in the afternoon, that makes sense. It is related, and it's how our brain kind of talks to the rest of our body. Maybe you have thyroid. For me, it was hypothyroidism. I know some people have hyperthyroidism. Maybe you have thyroid issues. Maybe you have autoimmunity with your thyroid, and perhaps you're on meds for your thyroid, which makes sense because that is connected to stress as well. And so we see that T3 to T4 conversion. We see our high TPO antibodies. We see high TSH because our brain is over signaling. That's related to stress. Maybe your hormones start to crash. And this is where I talk to women who are in perimenopause, and I hear that word a lot, and they might have started HRT. They might be on progesterone therapy, estrogen, something like that, because they get this report and their doctor says, yeah, your progesterone's really low. Well, when we back up and we move back to the beginning, it is actually caused by stress, and then your body is deficient in the nutrients. It's trying so hard to keep up, but it's burning through everything you have. And that's why when we see this downstream, your hormones can crash. So when we look at cortisol, I want you to know that cortisol is actually not a bad thing. We like almost call it like a cuss word, like, oh, I have high cortisol. But cortisol is required for life. So certain people that have like different types of cancer and it impacts their cortisol, they can't get out of bed because they have no cortisol. They're bottomed out. They have zero energy. So cortisol is required for you to wake up in the morning. It's required for you to have that drive, that oomph, that ability to like get through your day. We need cortisol, but of course we want it to be balanced. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. So when it's under threat, as you just saw in that pathway, your thyroid's impacted, your hormones are impacted, even your blood sugar, like your insulin regulation is impacted. And of course, you probably know this already. You don't need me to say it, but that's why you're holding on to fat, especially belly fat, especially in your midsection, and your metabolism really, really slows down because your body truly doesn't care if you can digest your food, if you need to run away from the tiger. If the tiger's going to get you first, who cares if you've digested your meal? That's what your body is thinking. So let's talk through some habits because this is the part you can actually change. You can actually make a difference by switching out these habits that might not be working that are on the screen right now and switch it out for habits that are going to support you better. Small shifts can actually have huge impacts, but it takes a little time and it takes a little bit of repetition and consistency. And yet, I can't understate how important some of these habits are. So typically when I talk to people, and so funny because I was actually at an appointment right before this, and I saw one of the people working there. She left for lunch. She's like, "Oh, I gotta go for lunch. I'll be back." And while I was still in the waiting room, like I was a little bit early, she came back and she only had coffee. And I was like, "What do you mean you're getting coffee for lunch? You're not even going to get food?" And so I see this in real life, in real time today. And I see this when I talk to my clients. They are living off of coffee instead of food. And typically it's breakfast. Typically the mornings are more rushed. So coffee is breakfast, if you will. Maybe they think intermittent fasting's good. We talked about that in yesterday's session. But if you are having just coffee, that's not supporting your cortisol. All right, number two, skipping meals, under eating, no nutrients, kind of together. They all go together. You could be eating a salad for lunch. That's under eating if you're not getting protein and if you're not getting carbs and if you're not getting those healthy fats, right? You need to have a full balanced meal. And that is what we'll talk about tomorrow. But some people skip meals altogether. They're not eating at all. They're not eating breakfast or they're skipping working through lunch, whatever. They're nutrient depleted and their body is not going to be able to keep up with the demands, especially when you're stressed. Your body's going to burn through nutrients even quicker. Sometimes what I see is people are overtraining. I've talked to people like I had done in the past. I was doing 2 a day workouts. Some people are doing hour, 2 hour long workouts, 5, 6 days a week, and their body is exhausted. Similar to what I talked about yesterday, if you're doing too much cardio, that is not really building muscle. So that could be stressing your body out and yet not supporting it by helping you tone up. But these two are probably the thing that I see most often, and they're like just kind of like more easily a part of our society now than they used to be. We tend to glorify the hustle culture. So we work, 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 work. and then fall asleep and then do it again the next morning, right? So we go to bed late because we're up working. We uh, kind of just keep going throughout the day. And then when we get in bed, we are looking at all the blue lights and we're scrolling and we're doing the doom scrolling through whatever social media platform you love. And then your brain is just racing. That's also not ideal for your cortisol. And then just that constant mental load. I see this as moms. I see this when we are professionals. We have that like to-do list and it's about 30 pages long in our brain. And it might not be the forefront of what we are thinking, but it's always there. We always have this mental load and it doesn't go away. So that's causing you stress as well. So all of this is causing stress on our body. And if we don't insert the proper habits, that's when we really feel the effects of it. Those symptoms really, really start to appear. So here's what to do instead. We'll kind of break it down morning, middle of the day, and night. And so if you're taking notes, this is the part that I would say to take notes with. So morning routine. I do not have a 50-step morning routine like you see. Oh, I'm a billionaire and I have this morning routine and I do 50 different things in the morning and I cold plunge and I sauna and I dry brush and I jump on my rebounder trampoline and I drink my green juice, right? Like people go on and on and on. That is probably not realistic if you are just trying to get through the day and you have so many other people depending on you. But these things are very attainable. And so I'm trying to give you small wins. If you have the capacity to do more of a morning routine, great. Go for it. But this would be what I call like the bare minimum. So when you wake up in the morning, the bare minimum is to hydrate first thing. Um, I would say 16 ounces, again, bare minimum. I would recommend even more like 20, 30, 35 ounces of water. Drink a lot of water. That's going to wake you up, honestly, better than coffee. It's going to be better for your body. All night you have gone without drinking anything, so you definitely need some water. And then as you think about your day, I love smoothies. I talked about that already in the series. Smoothies are going to be a good way to include protein, include whole meals, so you get your carbs and your fats and all that. And I would have that before coffee. This is going to take away that anxiety right away, right? Because you're going to slow that absorption of the coffee right into your bloodstream, and you're going to have your smoothie. Even if they're side by side, putting them together is really key. So eat breakfast, include protein. The third one is I would still call a bare minimum, even if it is out your window on the way to work. But if you can drink your coffee next to a window, bonus points if you can go outside now that it's starting to warm up. Some way to tell your body, hello, wake up, get some morning sunlight. And I would say 10 minutes. 10 minutes is going to be awesome for you. During the middle of the day, we have this tendency to work through lunch, but at least give yourself 15 minutes. Try not to rush, rush, rush and shovel food in your face. Eat a balanced meal. Make sure that you are fueling properly. And again, I'll be talking about that more later in the series. That one's tomorrow. And in a perfect world, I would say go for a 10-minute walk after your lunch, and that helps you digest it better. So that could be your 30-minute lunch break right there. That is, I think, legally required for everyone to have. So 30 minutes, great. If that's all you get, we can totally make that work. In the afternoon, I would avoid caffeine after 3 or 4 p.m. and I would drink water instead. Water can't be understated. It's going to help wake you up. And in the short term, if you are used to the coffee, you might feel it. However, in the long term, it's going to really help those cortisol levels. In the evening, I laugh at this picture. Someone has the ability to do, again, their 50-step evening routine, probably doesn't have kids that need their teeth brushed and need to help, get them ready or push them in the shower because they just want to be stinky all day. But I will say the bare minimum again, I would say getting to bed by 10 p.m., giving yourself a few moments of stillness. That could be 5 minutes, sitting quietly without hearing constant stimulation of a TV, of noise, of just 5 minutes for yourself. I would recommend instead of doom scrolling, turning off screens an hour before bed, read, journal, meditate, stretch, do something else away from a screen. And then if you have other things that you need to do with your skincare routine or whatever else, add that in. But this is what I would call the bare minimum. All right. So these are lifestyle strategies and they help. So, yeah, I absolutely talk about nutrition and I talk about exercise, but I also look at data. And so that's kind of what makes me stand out from like just a macros coach is I look at data as well. And so when I see these symptoms, I can tell you just by looking at your cortisol labs, that's exactly why you're seeing it. And here's exactly what to do. So it gives us that more streamlined approach in order to understand why you're seeing and how you're feeling the way you are. And so these are the typical symptoms that I see. When I see this on a lab and I look at cortisol, I do look at a 4-point cortisol test. So look at it first thing in the morning, whenever you wake up, the middle of the day, so right around lunch. Evening is sometime, I would say, usually close to after dinner. So sometime in the evening and then right before bed. And then we look at that total cortisol number. When you go get blood work at a lab, it is always done first thing in the morning because you're usually fasting and it doesn't give you the full picture because cortisol is usually high in the morning. In this person, it was not. It was really low, and they were low throughout the day. So this person is going to feel like a zombie. They're going to feel exhausted getting out of bed. They didn't realize that they are just fully depleted. Their cortisol is bottomed out. Their body is totally bottomed out and tanked. But if I look at a different cortisol lab, this person, their mind is racing at night. So this is the nighttime one. I guess it cut off when I took the screenshot. They were fine in the morning. They could get up, coffee, no problem. They're fine during the day, but their mind is racing at night and they could not fall asleep. Their mind is just like, I have all these things to do. Okay. So this person, they're wired, but they're tired, but wired. And then this person had, I would say, extreme anxiety, a lot of rage, a lot of just big emotional disruptions, and they couldn't figure out why. Well, when we looked at their cortisol, it was 100. Going back to the first one, this one was 2.4. A ideal range is somewhere between like 5 and 10. This one is 100. Of course, they are having lots of mood-based issues because their cortisol is through the roof. And actually, when we looked at this person, there were other things as well. So this was actually her test, kind of putting all the pieces together. Estrogen was super high, but progesterone was super low. So her sex hormones were very much imbalanced as well. And then thyroid, and I don't think this was the same test, but looking at thyroid markers, when we look at thyroid, that's connected to cortisol. While some of the markers were optimal, they had a big immune response, an autoimmune response with their antibodies being out of range. So their body was almost attacking itself. And so we see this when we look at data, we can really understand what is going on. That's the root cause because saying, oh, you just need more coffee to get through your day. Oh, don't drink energy drinks, like small things like that. That's not going to really change it when everything is really, really out of balance. It needs a more specific approach. Okay. So, with all of this information, so much information, and I, again, don't want to overwhelm you, but I also want to give you some strategies of like, well, here's where to go. Here's actually what you can do to answer your questions of, is this a problem for me? Is what is causing my fat loss? Is there something else that I should be considering, right? And so really just talking to me is a good way to give you answers really quickly. I do 10 to 15 minutes. I call them an audit. This is a stress audit. We could also look at nutrition as well. So looking at one specific topic, the goal is, oh, I have these symptoms. Here's what I'm doing right now. And here is why you aren't seeing the results you are seeing, whether it's stress, whether it's nutrition, whether you want to talk about exercise, it's one topic. And what you do is you walk away with like, here are 1, 2 specific things you can do right now that will actually move the needle and help you see results. So for everyone on the call, I will send you the link to book. But if you're watching this on a replay, I'll have the link like located right below the replay link. I have calendar openings as early as next week. Feel free to book this. It is free. I'm not the used car salesman being like, oh, you have to sign up. I genuinely want to offer you value because I I want to help you and I don't want you to be stuck where you have nowhere to turn. I want you to see results, basically. So book this free audit. I would love to chat with you and help you just one or two things. Like you should be doing this exact thing. I would love to help you get started. So with that, I will send the link and then what I will recommend is coming back tomorrow because we'll be talking about nutrition. So stress, just like stress and fat loss is all connected, it is connected to your nutrition. It is connected to exercise. So we're going to keep talking about that through the series, and I look forward to seeing you on that one as well. All right, take care.